does for that. Okay. Let's repeat it one more time, what we are discussing about. So basically, we're starting with the CRUD operations today. CRUD operations, basically every API call, like we have talked about request and response, the way they works, all the API calls are based on these CRUD operations. Why an API call? Why, raising a request, we can create something, we can retrieve something, we can update something, or we can delete something. Equivalent to these CRUD operations, we have this HTTP methods. Okay, both are similar things. Okay, where retrieve is your get, create is your post, update is put and patch, and delete is delete. Okay, when you're opening a URL, you're basically firing up a get HTTP method. Like if I go to the twitter.com, I am firing up a get HTTP method. When I'm creating an account, or suppose on the Twitter, if I'm posting a tweet, then I'm firing up a post HTTP method. Okay, when I'm making some changes in my account over the Twitter, when I'm posting, okay, yeah. Okay, so some people have joined just today. I'm just again we didn't did much. We just started, and again I'm revising. I'm repeating what I just explained. Okay, so yeah, so uh, put or patch HTTP method is your update CRUD operation. Basically, when you're updating your profile, let's say your Twitter profile, then you're firing up on the back end this put and patch HTTP method. And when you're deleting something, let's say you're deleting a tweet, okay, then you're firing up a delete HTTP method. Okay. In today's lecture, we will see this practically. We'll do this, API calls. We'll use this HTTP methods on the student application that we have set it up yesterday. Okay, and we'll try to understand, how it works. And this is not a REST assured centric. It goes with every API. It goes with the API. It's not a REST assured thing. Even in the Postman, I can do it. Even in the SOAP UI, I can do it. Okay, this is how this API calls works. That's based on these CRUD operations. Okay, let's talk more about these four methods. Okay, so four of these out of these four methods, only your get method is a read-only method, whereas post, put, patch, and delete are write methods. The reason behind that is, before even doing it, you can understand it. Just think about it. When what we did when I fired up this get request, then I didn't write anything. I mean, I on the same website, I didn't in the browser. I just passed the URL twitter.com, and I got the website, right? But if I talk about the other if I talk about the other things like the posts, when I'm creating an account, let's say I'm making a login, then I'm passing some information. I have to pass my email here. I have to pass my password here. Okay. So basically, I am passing something. So that's why it's post is your write method. Same goes for the put and patch too. Like if I'm updating information on the place of existing information, again, then I'm writing something. I'm making some change. Same goes for the delete, that you're making some changes. Basically, by the write method, it doesn't mean that we are writing something, but we are making some changes in the database. We are manipulating the resources either by creating it, or by updating it, or by deleting it. Whereas in the get method, it doesn't matter. I mean, we are just reading, we are retrieving the information. We are not making any changes in the existing data. Okay, there are more thing about this these four CRUD operations, that I will talk in a while. Okay, so first, now let's go back to the Postman and the student application. Okay, so first thing that I want to tell you about is the features of student application. Okay, so here it is. So in the student application, first of all, I can retrieve the list of all the students. I can retrieve a single student using its ID. There is a ID, provided to the each student by the application itself. So I can retrieve student by their ID. I can add a new student, like in the database. I can make a new entry of a student. Okay, I can add multiple students together too. I can update existing student information. Okay, and I can remove existing student. Okay, and if you have noticed, very carefully, what are all these features? On which thing they are based? These are based on the CRUD operations. These are based on the API calls. Like right here, if I say retrieve all student is equivalent to your get HTTP method. Whereas, retrieve a single student is again a get request. Adding a new student is a adding a new student is your post request. Okay. Adding multiple students is again a post request, post HTTP method. Updating a student is your, it can be, put HTTP method, or it can be a patch HTTP method, or removing the existing student is your delete HTTP method. Right. This is what we have talked about, and this is on this API is based. Every API, more or less are based on these CRUD operations only. Okay, every API call. Right. So let's start with the very first features of the student application. Okay, which are based on the GET request. Okay, so here is the list of URLs on which I'll fire it up, that request within the Postman to get all student. This is the URL to get a specific student, and I'll come to all of this. But before, let's understand these URLs also. Okay, so basically, if you have noticed, all these URLs, okay, one thing is common among all of these. Okay, first of all, I'll just, yeah. So this is the URL, suppose. Look at all these URLs. One thing is common among these. This localhost 8080, localhost 8080, localhost 8080. Okay. One thing more is common, the student. So out of this URL, I can say that till this part is my base URL, or what do you say, base URI. Okay. Slash student is your base path, because through this path it's going to different direction. The student list and something is changing, student list program, student list ID. Okay, so here it is your base path, and at last you have your endpoint. Okay, in this first URL, this list is your endpoint. In this second URL, after the student, what you are getting at the last is your endpoint. Okay, again, this is your endpoint. At here, I'm providing ID at a endpoint. Okay, right now, within the Postman, it doesn't make any difference, how this URLs are built up. Our request will work fine because we have to just find, provide this whole URL. But it is very important for us to understand, how to break it down. Okay, when we'll create our test cases in the rest assured, we should be aware about this. Again, I'll talk about it, when we'll start with the rest assured modules, but I just to tell you about, every rest assured request URL has three parts. It has a base URI, it has a base path, and it has a endpoint. Okay, in this get request, what is happening here? That
What the base path means?
Okay, base path is from there, we are generating different endpoints. Like if you look at it, all of these before the endpoint, like if the list is the endpoint, the common path is student. Here, if this is the endpoint, the common path is student.
So the business path has the business. So the base path has some business functionality implemented, or like
No,
is it? It's just
no
a path
base.
name.
Yeah, usually like if I'm creating a test case in the rest assured, so I'll create my request in such a way that I don't have to repeat code. Like all the requests that are, that has a common base that will be put together.
Oh, got it, got it. Yeah, okay.
You got my
Fold
point?
like structure. Okay.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. This is for the, the maintaining our request in the right fashion. That's why it is known as your base path. Okay, different endpoints and a common base path. All right. So now, uh, to actually see this request in the real time working, I need to open the Postman, and here it is. Okay.
So last
Yeah.
question. What is
Mhm.
an endpoint means? Like, does it contain the business functionality, or what is an endpoint means then?
Yeah, it actually contains the real functionalities in the endpoint. The final functionality, like I'm opening a file directory structure. I have this folder. In that folder, I have the base folder. In that I have my application. It's just like that. The final, the implementation is at the endpoint. Like you said, business functionality is performed by the endpoint. Okay,
Okay, thank you.
no problem. So hello. Yeah, you're audible.
Sorry, just one. As I have joined bit late, I just want to get one small clarity here. When you're telling
Uh-huh.
the entire the URL have three parts: base
Uh-huh.
URI, base path, and the last one is
Endpoint.
endpoint. So the base URI will be the local host 8080, right? Port
Exactly,
until
exactly,
port it is base
exactly,
URI,
exactly, exactly,
and
exactly.
after base URI and before path, that is base. I'm sorry. After 8080 and before release, that will be
B
base path.
Base path. Yeah, before the endpoint, wherever you see the endpoint, the path that you have, common is the base path. Okay, and it's not going to be like that. Every API, what we'll see is will be like that. Uh, the real-time APIs, which have lots many features, like we have one of these, the retail app. Okay, you have to, yourself see, that these requests are, have the common path, so that they should be put together. Okay, that this request has a common path you have to put together. Okay, it's not like a universal thing. I'm just telling you by the looking at the URLs itself, you can understand this, that all of these requests are, getting originated from the same path. They has a common path. Okay, all has this before the endpoint has a student. So that's why,
Mhm.
Okay. And within the Postman, it doesn't make any difference. All I have to do is, put your request here and, send it and I'll get back the response. But, when we are actually structuring our, test cases in the rest short, because that's where, we are actually going to write the code. So, that's where very important us to understand this concept. Okay. Again, we are going to discuss about it, when we'll actually, need to separate it, or, have create common test cases for the common path. But that will do a bit later. Okay. Now let's see, how this get HTTP method works with the student application within the Postman. Okay. So this is my first request to get all the students. So I'll just copy it from here. I'll go to the Postman, um, and one thing more, do not get confused about the Postman. We do not need Postman, it's just for the manually seeing a URL, if it's working or not, what kind of response that we are getting. Okay. So in this window right here, when you'll open Postman, it will look like this. All you have to do is, put your URL here. Out of this list of requests, like it's a get request, I know that, and click on send. Right now it won't work because I didn't started the application. So first let's start the application. Okay, so it's on my desktop. So this is how, we'll start a jar file. Student application is basically a jar, Java jar res.jar, and the application will start running. Okay, it's starting. All right. So now let's try one more time sending this get request on this get URL. And if I click on send now, here I can see. You see, I just got the list of all the students that are present. Okay, so this is what we are talking about. This what this URL does. This was the base URI. This was the base path and list. At the endpoint, you have to shoot list, and you'll get the list of all the students in front of you. Okay, and I talked about the XMLs and the JSONs too yesterday. So if you look at this response, I'm getting everything in the form of JSON. Okay, this is the key, this is the value, a gain key and a value. Okay, all the student information, all different student information is coming in this form of key and value, which is a JSON. Okay, and I told you that within the JSON, it can be there will be only key value pairs, also known as maps in the Java, or there can only be a list. Okay, like an array list. If you look closely at this JSON, either I have a map here or I have a list. Even this complete thing here, each student information is basically a list, is a part of a list. Okay, square brackets represent a list, curly brackets represent a map. Okay,
And what all other possibilities are there to see here in this JSON? Now, like you told it can be this map type or it can be list type. And what else we can see here? Are there anything else we can see, or these are the only two we'll see here?
this is the only tool you see, but it can be nested. Like in this list, there can be a map. That map again can have a list. Okay. Okay. I can show you the JSON of that kind, but I don't want you to get confused right now. Okay. I'll because we are on a very starting stage. Okay. But still, I'll show you that I have a file here that has a different JSON examples.
So list is just an array of values.
I'm sorry.
List will be just an array of values.
Yeah, yeah. It will just have a string, or it can have any value. That is why it's called as list. So yeah, someone asked me about the JSON, what can be the possibilities. So you see, this is again a JSON. It has a map. Map has a list of maps again. You see, here I have a list that is consist of maps. This is a map 1 and this is a map 2. And this map again has a list within it. Okay, so we will talk about it, step by step. We'll go here, we'll reach here, but let's just focus on the basics first.
Okay.
Uh, I have a question here.
Uh-huh.
You run in a Postman the HTTP localhost 8080 student list. The same thing when I tried, I got an error message.
Have you started the student application first?
Yeah, the way you did, right? CD desktop, I kept it a rest jar there. Like I'm using a MacBook.
Yeah, yeah, I'm on the Mac right now.
Yeah, so same I have done. So for me in terminal, I can see that uh, um, it is successful.
Mm-hmm.
But when I put the get request, I got an error.
Okay, have you play? Maybe there is something wrong with your request because everything was like this: HTTP slash localhost slash 8080. There can be problem with your URL if the application is running. Okay,
Okay,
so
I'll check it again. Yeah.
yeah, you'll check it again, and I'll share this file with you. This file, which has information about all the requests, so you can check it out about yourself. Okay, all these.
Okay.
Okay, now let's proceed, further with the session. Right. So I just fire up my first request, to get list of all the students with this endpoint. Okay, and I got it. And in the response, we got information in the format of JSON because this is an application based on REST, and that has request and response in the format of JSON. Okay, which are 90% of APIs are based these days. Right. Now, in the same way, we have some more URLs for the GET request. Let's talk about the second URL, which is get specific student. Okay, by the specific student, what we mean that you can get a student by the name of its program. Like each student is opted for a program like this. The first student called Vernon with the ID one is opted for the financial analysis. The student is opted for the computer science. Okay, so in the same way, it is even possible with the student application that you can get a student by its program name. Okay, suppose I want to, I want to fetch students out of all this list that has, opted for financial analysis. I just want to see the students that are opted for the financial analysis. Okay, so this is what this URL will do for us. I'll copy it from here and put it here. I'll explain you in the endpoint also what is happening. So basically, out of the list, when we'll write this question mark here, basically we are putting the validation that I only want this the key where the key program is, it should be equals to the financial analysis. Okay, program is a key, and I'm putting a validation that I just want the students that are opted for the financial analysis. So this time, if I run this and send the request, I will see the list of students only that are opted for the financial analysis. Here you can see. Okay, even I can also put a limit. I can put a limit that I don't want, all the students that are opted for the financial analysis. I just want, two of these or, four of these. So I will simply say here, limit equals to two, or let's say four. So if I click on send, this time I'm only getting four students that are opted for the financial analysis. Okay. So, these about the functionality, the retail application is that it can fetch student in such a way. Okay, don't go there right now. Yeah. Just focus on the get request. Okay, whatever I'm doing, whatever manipulation I'm doing in the endpoint, it's going via the get method. Okay, I am not making any changes anywhere. I'm just retrieving the information by manipulating the URL. Okay, I didn't I
So
didn't
this
create it.
manipulation we need to learn, or is it like developer will give the
No, no, no,
whatever?
no. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. This URLs and a ready API will be provided by the developer. Developer will give us these URLs. Okay, they will give us the file of the API. Our work is to test it out. Like suppose I want to test out a list of all the students. Like I want to put a validation that there should be a key present, a program should be present there. Okay, ID should be ID should have a number in it. It should not be a string value. This is the kind of thing that we have to validate. Okay, we're still very we are still in the very early stage. Okay, so let's not go there. Right here, our objective is to understand this CRUD operations. Okay.
Yeah, hi. I have one question.
Mm-hmm.
So, like after student, you are putting least integrative sign, right, and then program.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
why you are putting least? That is least thing program, or it is under the map, right? There is no third bracket or something. Square bracket is there, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, this is again, this is how I designed this application. It doesn't really, following that what you're saying, the convention. I got your point that I put the least sign, that's why it's getting. So basically, here what I mean by this URL is, firstly, it's just to tell you about, the different ways the same URL with different endpoint works on a GET request. Second, what it is doing is it's simply it's looking for a key out of all the list of student program key where it is equals to financial analysis. Okay, this percent 20 goes for the space. It's just simply looking for the financial analysis, right? Wherever it sees that the program key value of the key program is equals to the financial analysis, it's just fetching that out. Okay, and after that I'll put that limit that I want two of these, three of these.
Okay, so
Okay.
if I want to phase with last name, then I will put student slash list integrative sign last name
Mhm.
and that one, right? Last
Yeah,
name.
actually, it should be exactly same as your key. Again and again, I'm emphasizing on it. If it's in the lower case, it should be like this. If it's in the in
Yeah,
this format, it should
key.
be like this.
I will copy the key from there and I will paste there,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
equal to the value, right? And then
yeah,
there is any space, then it should be percentage 20.
yeah. If there is a space, yeah, percentage 20, exactly.
Okay, and then the and sign and then a limit, right?
Yeah, no, limit is it's not mandatory.
If
Actually, yeah, yeah. If you want to put it, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Okay,
Okay, thanks.
right, no problem. Okay, let's talk about the last URL quickly, which is to get the student by the ID. So if you look at this JSON, all of these students are comes with the ID. Okay, so I can also fetch a student, I can also retrieve a student, I can also get a student by its ID. All I have to do is at last, at the endpoint, I have to provide an ID. Suppose I want to get a student that has ID, let's say 89. Okay, so if I click on the send now, I can see a student with the ID 89. Right? Simple as that. Okay. Our, right now, our purpose is not, to understand this, manipulation of URLs. It's just basically, focused on the CRUD operations. Even, uh, this is the same thing. This is the same part we are actually going to do in a week with the rest assured. We are going to build up this request, via the code, the rest assured request. Okay, this is just how understand. We are just trying to get it to understand the working of an API and how actually this CRUD operation work, how the API calls work. Okay, so now this is about the GET request where we are retrieving the data. We are not creating a new resource. We are not committing any change. We are just retrieving. Okay, next request that I'll talk about is the post or create. Okay, where we are actually creating a resource. And as you already know, I've talked about this request. Adding a new student is a create request. Okay, basically I have a list of students here in the Postman. Okay, like this was the request that we have worked on. So I have this list of students. Okay, there are 100 presents actually. Okay, so I want to add a new student to this list. Okay, so what I have to do is first change get to the post and here provide the URL. Like a get request post also has a URL, where it will go, that this request will go. So here is my URL. Okay, I'll just simply copy it from here. I'm sorry. And
Abhinav, assume that we will test it manually more often in our project. Then, is there any website or link where we can study about manipulating different endpoints to get different results?
okay, so I'll talk about it, but we do not really need it right now. I maybe the manipulation keyword, took you in the other way. We do not need that right now because every API that we'll work on is going to have a different structure, like a folder structure, like a file structure. This URL structure will be. Okay, but still, I'll give you some examples in tomorrow's class if you want to, like you want to see if this different structure work. But just think about it as a file structure on your computer. Like if I go to some file, if I have this file here.
Yeah, no, I understood that file structure, but I was just thinking like if I have to test out different scenarios, just as you said, I have to construct my own endpoint after that some of the parameters. So I was just thinking like will the developer give if I ask, or like is it something that okay even I
No,
have
no, 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 no. It is a functionality. Like it's not mandatory even. Like it's not mandatory that your developer will give you that. It's holding that. Okay, that if it is allowed to fetch a student by by financial analysis program or by the key value. It may be possible. It may be. It totally depends on the API. It totally depends on the developer. It's not a convention that it has to be done. Okay, that's why I'm saying, there won't be any concrete example that this rule, it's a universal that it will exist everywhere. Okay. I just created this different URLs within the student application just to make you understand that we can retrieve the information from the same API in different ways. Okay, we are not doing any validation or the actual testing scenario. We are not testing any out anything. We're just, simply, just checking out that different URLs how they're working. In the testing, we actually what we do is that we put validations on the response that we are getting. We put validation on the response format, that if it's following the JSON schema, if it's in the right format, if the information, the first name value should only be the string, it should not hold any character. Email should, contain an @ within it. This is, the kind of data we are validating, and we'll see in a while. Okay, so now let's quickly go to the next request, which is the post request, where we are creating a resource. Okay, we're not retrieving this time, we are creating something. So just think about it, very carefully. Just think about it, that if I want to create something, I need to pass something, right? With my request on this URL, I have to pass something. And what I have to pass? I have to pass a JSON. Like if I want to add a student here, there are 100 students present here, and the next student obviously will be added at the 101 position. Okay, and if I look at this JSON, this is the kind of JSON that I have to provide. Okay, so I'll just copy this format. Okay, let it be. I'll just copy one of this student here, and I'll change the information, because otherwise it will say that I'm adding a duplicate student. Okay, we'll try that also, it will be interesting. So I'll click on post. I provided the path. Now, if I go here, just hold on. Yeah. So here, if you see, right now, I'm not passing any JSON, so that's why I'm seeing I'm seeing this empty error. So here's my request. I selected the post. Now on this all the sections, if I go to the body, okay, and here something present already here. So first of all, okay, let's create a new request, because there are some things that are already done, and you will get confused by this, when you'll do it yourself. So what I will do here is simply create a new point. I'll put the URL here. So, okay, first let's go to the body, then I'll put the URL. So in the body, when you click on the body, this is something you are going to look at. Okay, do not get again confused by this param authorization adders. All of this request holds it, but we'll see it in the rest assured itself. Right now we do not need it. Request holds some parameters. It has some authorization tokens. It can have some headers, and it also has a body. Right now I'm creating a student. Okay, so I have to provide a JSON in the request body. Okay, I have a different formats in which I can send the body. I can send in a form data form, like I can directly pass the key and value. I can send it in the URL encoded form. Okay, but again, this is all are not accepted by the student applications right now. We are working on. So I will simply click on raw, that I'm simply passing my JSON here. Suppose this is the JSON. Okay, and out of this drop down list, select the format of this JSON. Okay, right now it is selected as text, which will won't work, because we know that it's a JSON format. So click on this JSON application/JSON. Okay, the color will change. Keys are on much more on the red side, and the values are on the blue side. Okay, so now I will also provide the URL on which I want to fire it up. Okay, so this is the URL, and okay, now if I click on send, I will see an error. Okay, we are not seeing the error because again there was some change in the email address. So if I go to the list of students now, and this time I will see, okay, we are actually not seeing a student added. Okay, let's do it one more time. and go to the list. Or what we can do directly, we can also get a student by its ID, right? If there is a one, okay, 101, no. 102, no. All right. So the post request is going successful, even we are getting a success message, but student is not getting added. So let's check out the body and okay. A reason behind that is we got it. A reason behind that is that I'm not following the JSON schema. If you look at the post request, how it should be, these are the keys that should present: email, program, course, last name, first name. It should not have ID within it. Okay, ID is something that will be provided by the application itself. Okay, so I have to remove this ID tag from here, right? Now, let's just put it in the right order. And now let's try sending it again. Right. So this time it actually worked. You see, error email address already exists because I put on the same information. Okay, and it validates a new student by the email address, that all students should have a different email address. This is the logic that it is following. So if I change the email address to something else, and now if I'll try to send it, this time it's saying the student is added. Now I think the position should be 101. Okay, so I'll fire up a get request on the 101 endpoint, and okay, maybe it is added at a different endpoint. So I'll just get the list of all students. Let's see the last student. Okay, it got added at the 102 location. Okay, this is the email address that I provided. So we just added a new student. We have just created a new resource. Okay, how we did it? Via the post request. Okay, again, it is very important to follow the JSON schema. By the schema, I just mean the scheme that is provided you by your developer. That this is the JSON that will be accepted. Okay, it should not hold the ID. I was providing the ID before, that's why it was not getting added. Okay, ID is something that will be provided by the application itself. This is how it is designed, right? Okay, so this is about the post request, and you see that when I'm firing up a post request again and again, I'm emphasizing on this point that I'm creating a resource. I'm creating a resource because it uh, it is something that we should understand. All the things are related to this point only. Okay, so in the same way, I have another request called put, or also there is a patch request. Okay, which basically to update a student data. So what I mean by this is that suppose this is the student that I just added, okay, and this Oscar, and I want to update, let's say its last name, his last name. Okay, so I'll use the put request, and first I need this URL on which I have to pass, and I have to provide the JSON. Okay, the student JSON again, for which I want to update the data. So suppose let's create a new one here. I'll click on put, okay, provide the uh, path that should hold the ID. Okay, be very careful about this endpoints. Like when I'm creating a new student, this was the URL. Okay, this was the endpoint. When I'm updating a student at the endpoint, I have to provide the ID. You see, so in my case, the student that I want to update has a ID 102, like the one we have just added. Okay, so my URL is ready. I will go to the body, click on raw, click on the application JSON, and here provide the what do you say, information that you want to update. Okay, I'll just copy that already existing JSON. Uh, uh, Body raw application JSON. Put the JSON here. It should not hold any ID. Okay, and let's say I'm updating the information with this data. Okay, name was Oscar, I believe, so I'll just kept it same. Okay, and here provide the URL. So my URL is this. Okay, 102 student. So now if I'll send this request, I'm updating an email. So just look at it one more time earlier how it was like that. So earlier it was like this. Okay, and again we are changing it to something else now. Let's just close the extra ones that are opened. Okay, here we go. So this is the information that was present earlier. Now I'm just updating it with this information. Now if I click on send, I'm seeing the student is updated. Okay, so if I'll call the 101 student one more time by the get, I'll see the updated information this time. You see, this is the email address that I have just updated by the put request. Okay, again, if I also fetch the list of all students, we'll see the change reflected here. Okay, this is the email address that I have changed. Okay, now I hope you got about this post and the put. Okay, I'll just talk about we're just left with two more points, and after that we'll take the doubts. So if you have noticed one thing, that there should be a question that should come to your mind, that I just wanted to update the email. Okay, I just wanted to update the email, but why did I provide it the whole JSON again? Does it make really any sense? I mean, it is fine. Like, suppose I want to change so many values, like last name has a problem, email has a problem, program has a problem. In that case, it's fine. It's understandable that I have to change multiple values. That's why I provided the whole JSON again. But this time, I just have to, change the email, and I'm providing the whole JSON. And it can be scenario, if you see a bigger picture, there will be, a much bigger JSONs than this, and you have to change one value. Then why you provide the whole JSON again? Okay, so again we have a API solution for that, API call solution for that. That is patch. So when you want to update a single property out of a JSON, let's say I just want to update the email, instead of using put, use the patch. With the patch, you do not have to provide the all the information again. You just have to provide the one property that you want to change. Okay. So this time I changed the what do you say method from put to the patch. I'm not providing the whole JSON again. I'm just providing the email here. Okay, let's say I'll change the email to the Abhinav. Okay, so now if I click on send, again I'm seeing the student is updated, and if I get the student again 102, the email will be updated. Okay, but this time I didn't provided the whole JSON again. Okay, again it totally depends on your requirement. If you just want to update a single resource, it doesn't make sense. You'll use a put method because it requires a whole JSON again. If it's a single resource, use the patch. If there are multiple values that are going to be changed, in that case use the put. Okay, this was the third HTTP method, put patch, and the last one is delete. Okay, the last one is delete. As you already know, the delete, what will do, it will simply delete a resource. So suppose I just want to delete the student that I just added. So I'll provide, okay, I'll just check its URL. Okay, at last you have to provide the ID again, like the update, and click on delete. Okay, send this request, and it doesn't giving any response, but the student is deleted. Okay, this is how the application is working. So if I try to get the student with the ID 102, I'll see not found. Okay, even in the list of students, there won't be any entry with the ID 102. Okay, see how it works. Okay, so these are the different CRUD operations that we have worked on. Okay, so I hope it's clear to you. It's very basic, and if you still have any doubt about it, don't be worried. This is just Again, an introduction to the API, how API call works, what are the basic operations, just to see the real-time scenario. Okay, the same things we are actually going to do with the rest assured. We are going to see the automation of this also. Like what if I want to add, like this is not how it should be like if I want to add a new student, I'm providing a JSON. I want to add another student, I will write down another JSON. No, we'll automate this process, we'll add, 10, 20, 100 students together via script. I'll just write my code there. It will, get the data from an XLX file. Like suppose in an Excel file, I'll create columns like one is the first name, all for this key, one is the last name, email, program, course, and we will in the framework itself, you will see that you're adding 50 students together with just one click. You're testing out that scenario, then if the API is working with that or not. Okay, so again, we'll see that, and we gradually will do it. So this CRUD operations again will going to be repeated with the same thing with the rest assured how they are working. Okay. From tomorrow onwards, we are going to start. Before the rest assured, we should know about the Java. So we'll start with the Java basics. We'll do it for a week at least. Okay. So from tomorrow onwards, we'll start with the Java basics. And after that, we'll come back to the rest assured. And again, the CRUD option will be discussed. Okay.
Can you show this batch operation once? I just want to see what is the body you have given. How did you give the
Okay.
request as
Okay. This is the batch.
batch? Okay.
You're simply just providing the property in the body that you want to change, not the whole JSON.
How come when if there are multiple records with the same email ID, then it will update multiple records? Huh?
I'm sorry, I didn't got you.
Let's say there are two student informations where they're having the same email ID,
Okay.
because there is no restrictions we are doing from here. So there is a possibility that we can insert
No,
multiple
no,
email
no.
IDs.
No, no, no. It's still not possible. Application won't accept it. It's validating all the students. It's adding, making a new entry on the basis of a different email. If you're using the same email, it won't allow you to.
So now let's
Here.
say if we are updating in first name or second name where the possibilities of having a duplicate first name or second name. So in that case, if we do this kind of patch, then will it
Huh.
update all those records wherever
No,
the
no,
first name
no,
is
no, no,
matching?
no, no. You're missing a point. We in the URL we are providing the ID also. Okay, it will only update the student with this ID. Even they have the
Okay.
similar names. Got it?
Okay. So this ID is mandatory here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is the part
And
which we have to shoot the
acha,
request.
got it.
Yeah.
So one question here. If
Mhm.
so, just want to know, uh, just remove that 102 and give send. What will happen? Just want to see.
It won't work because this is not allowed to us. Okay, we are just getting that request method patch not supported on this URL. Okay,
So this restriction is like the
it's
formation of this endpoint URL that will be given by developer only, right? We
yeah,
don't have
yeah,
to do
yeah.
anything about it.
No, 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 no. We don't have to do it. We are just, understanding the environment of the API, how they
Oh,
works. Okay,
okay,
we are not reached to the testing part. We will see the testing, when we'll start with the rest assured. Okay.
okay, okay.
So Abhinav, the question should be for me is like
Mm-hmm.
at a time we can update only one record, like 102 providing ID,
Mm-hmm.
and suppose if the same email ID I have to update in multiple records, say 102, 103,
Mm-hmm.
104.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we
No,
cannot do that.
no, we can't do that, and logically it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make sense because why we update the same email for the different records for the different students,
Okay.
Or should
right?
the question be like this? If we have to update the information,
Mm-hmm.
let's say company name is some record to some employee, and that has to be
Uh-huh.
updated in multiple records.
Uh-huh.
And then how do we do it?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat it? Like, yeah.
Sure, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say in a scenario where we need to update the company name for multiple employees, where employee the company name will be the same for multiple records. In that case,
Mm-hmm.
how do we do that?
Okay, so you asked a very nice, very good question. I'll tell you why it is. So this is this